Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The List. Joining us is our good friend from the Draft Network, Mason Johnstone. And Mason, I believe you have got a new title at Clemson as well, didn't you? I believe I saw that.
Yeah. Thanks, Brett. Yeah, I just started getting into recruiting over at Clemson. Yep.
Awesome. I knew.
Are you one of the ones that has to unfortunately deal with all the NIL deals and stuff?
No. Thank God, no. A little bit more like down in the engine room, just info on prospects, things like that. A little bit of identification.
To give people kind of and I don't know how much you want to get into it, but to give people kind of a little insight, at any given time, just ballpark number, how many kids are you guys looking at? A, from just simply high school, and B, from portal and JUCO and stuff like that?
Yeah, just to be kind of surface level, we really don't recruit a ton of high school kids at a time. We're very selective. A lot of eyes have to get on players, and that's just the first part. And then there's obviously checking the boxes with their personality and their demeanor and attitude and things like that. I couldn't tell you how many guys we offer. I think it's probably in the ballpark of 100 per class with high school kids. Whereas, there's other schools where you get up into 400. And then as far as the transfer portal stuff, I really couldn't tell you. I think, we're a high school development program. So, obviously when there's a need that they want filled in the portal, they'll go and fill it, as, we kind of saw this off season. But yeah.
Like we said, Mason, you do great work with the Draft Network. This is a fun time. I feel like, much like last year when we talked to you, we needed offensive line. We're still kind of talking about that now, but a couple questions for you, kind of build off of it. I said back in February, and I still feel this now, that I felt this draft was actually building for the Dolphins to get a good D tackle. Now it looks like corner might also be the best position available too. Do you get that same opinion? And aside from full disclosure, I don't think Will Campbell or Membu are going to be there. Do you get the feeling that we're leaning towards looking at D tackle, cornerback, or is there any of the offensive linemen who might be late day one guys that you think you would or you wouldn't be surprised that we would, or Greer and McDaniel be like, we're going to reach for them at 13 just because they fit?
Yeah, honestly, with the offensive line stuff, it's frustrating as a fan. We can't. I don't think we can draft an offensive lineman with that first pick anymore. I think you've got to take a defensive tackle, or like you said, like if you get, I don't know, I haven't watched all of the cornerbacks, but I mean, if someone on the staff, like if the staff really likes Siobhan, or like there's going to be a place where you might have to overdraft one of these cornerbacks if that's where you want to go. I'm okay hitting offensive line within any of our first 100 picks. I think there's going to be value that kind of trickles down. Now, the other part of it is, trusting Chris Greer's process. The track record is not bad, but just, do you want to give more room for error later in the draft by gambling on an offensive lineman versus if you take any of them that are available at 13, any of the top guys, I'd be okay with it.
I think it's interesting how it shifted because there's such a need for offensive line, but there are two really glaring needs on the Dolphins defense. And I think, and Brett and I spoke about it in 4 minutes and 47 seconds in, we're going to talk about Michigan for Brett. But if Will Johnson's sitting there at 13, like I think it's an obvious answer.
Yeah,
I think that it's a really obvious fit. But I think if he's not there, look, I love Tyler Warren. I've mocked Tyler Warren to us, and I'm going to mock Tyler Warren to us again in the next 3 weeks. But I think sitting here tonight, I think you almost are in a corner where you have to take a defensive player.
Yeah. I absolutely agree.
Yeah, and honestly, like outside of Will, just
in the top 100 picks on defense alone.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and Will Johnson, like we said, and I believe he has a private workout on April 12th. So I've told some people the Michigan insiders are all saying he's running a sub 4.4, and if he does that, he's not going to be there at 13.
No.
So then you're looking at Jahdae Barron, or you're looking at, to me, one of 3 D tackles. Kenneth Grant, because let's be honest, Mason Graham's not going to be there. If he was, run that up, it's obvious. But you're looking at Kenneth Grant, you're looking at Derek Harmon, and you're looking at Walter Nolan. I think it's all a matter of opinion, because I've seen all of them go as high as 10. Mm-hmm. Derek Harmon in the top 10, like 8, and I've seen him go as low as 32.
Right.
So how do you view those 3 tackles?
Yeah. I'd say Grant for me is kind of at the top of my list there. I think there's a lot of parallels to kind of last year with Tavondre Sweat, where you kind of have up and down college film to a degree, but generally, like, if you're going to bet on the traits, that's the guy that you'd go with. And Grant has much more juice to his game, I think. Mm-hmm. But just kind of comparing profiles of, nose tackles, one text guys that eat up double teams. I was on a radio show not too long ago, and I was talking about how Kenneth reminds me of Dexter Lawrence, and that's kind of an easy comp, but more so in their relationship with how Dexter was viewed with Christian Wilkins versus how Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant's, relationship kind of plays into draft narratives. Like Dexter, there was no reason Dexter should have gone past the first 15 picks. No. Like, if you really look back at it, this is the guy you kind of see what he's doing now, and you're like, yeah, that does make sense. But as far as, with Grant, this is the guy that had the same thing. He was taking up double teams. He was playing next to a star, a guy that was a bona fide, top 15, top 20 guy, and Graham even is top 10. And it's just, you kind of get lost in the mix. And I think Grant, for me, if he's at 13, that would be my pick. Walter Nolan's another guy. Like, I think you get a little bit more range from Nolan. You get a little bit more, I'd say, violence at the point of attack. And then Harmon, I'm kind of iffy on. I've always viewed Harmon as a kind of a early day 2 guy, but I never was a first round guy with Harmon. I've kind of come around. The media consensus has pushed me,
so many people saying he's Chris Jones. That's all I see, everybody.
I'm not for all that, but I do think he's a great player. I'd also, and I've seen it recently. Krabs loves him, and then I think Simon Clancy was talking about him. Alfred Collins is a guy probably at 13 that'd be an overdraft, but I wouldn't. Sorry, I just got a dog.
No, you're good. I don't know if you saw Alfred Collins. They did come out and say, Marcel said that he's coming in for a 30 visit today.
Yeah, I remember we watched him to game plan, and he's a guy who, for me personally, as an evaluator, left a little bit more to be desired, just because I think there's more to do with his frame and his profile. I think we could see more athleticism from him, but at the end of the day, I still, right. He's a dominant run defender. So that's one of the things we watched him. I remember it was, I can't remember. It was maybe the first short yardage play against UTSA. And he literally, I don't think it was on purpose, he gets triple teamed and he 2 gaps and I'm talking about resets the line of scrimmage on 3 guys. And it was just that play. And it can be against UTSA, but I was like, no, that's 3 guys against 1. Like, I don't care where you're from. That translates. But I'm a big Alfred Collins fan. We'd have to either trade up from 48 or trade back from 13 to get him.
Yeah. And something Jordan and I were talking about before you joined us, I'm curious about this, because the talk a lot of people have, and I think it's told that was tweeted out that Todd McShay said that this is the deepest D tackle class he's remembered. And the question became, is it smart to wait? To me, I think I think it's deep, but I think after those, I think goes Graham, drop, Grant, Nolan, drop, Harmon, and then a big drop.
Yeah.
Plus, I would rather have that second round open I think that's going to be the sweet spot to get another guard in.
yeah, I mean, it's laughable, this defensive line class. And that's the thing. We're going to have to take one earlier because we're going to have to probably take one or two more later in the class. So, and that's the thing. The roster management at that position specifically has been very frustrating this offseason. But if there was a class, to kind of add some Band-Aids, it would be this one.
Yeah, so elephant in the room, Calais Campbell went to Arizona.
Right.
I would have loved to have him back. I'm not going to get too upset about, yes, you love it. He leadership, everything was great. I'm not going to get super upset about it, but I do kind of think that the reason we kind of ignored it is we have 10 picks, and this is a class you can have fun with on the defensive side of the ball. So I think that was intentional. And something I saw in Discord earlier, so I was going to ask you if this is possible. Someone was asking about Shamar Stewart. Do you think he could put weight on and play as like a DN in our 3-4?
Yeah, I do. You see what our defense is somewhat positionless. You've got Chop in there at 3 tech every once in a while, and you see Jalen move inside and out. I think he'd be a great complementary piece. If he's there at 13, I would heavily consider it, and that's not a guy that I've thought about. But, just you saying that, and you don't even have to – he could play 3 tech. I mean, you could just have him play a defensive end, kind of the same thing that Bradley and Jalen do, and you can never have enough of them. I think McDaniels and Greer have said that before, but it's true, especially considering the injury stuff with our defensive.
Mason, if we take a player at 13, any player that McDaniel comes out and says he sees them entering the edge rusher room, I think you're going to see a little bit of a meltdown.
Yeah, right. That's true.
Yeah. To go back to offensive line, but is there anybody again, if Membu or Will Campbell are there, I think you got to consider them.
Yep.
I don't really think you can say. Let me do it this way. Is there anybody you would be willing to sell me on for 13 other than those two as an offensive lineman?
Yeah, I think for me, I like Kelvin Banks, and I especially would like him at guard. I think he can play tackle, but it's just kind of the same conversation with all these other guys is the thresholds fit guard, so I'm okay with putting him there because that's where we need him. I think Josh Simmons is in play. I love him. I think he's violent. He's twitched up. He's got a suddenness about him. He really pops. And he's got
patella tendon.
Yeah, right. And then there's the injury, and that would be you want to talk about fans getting upset. It's take Josh Simmons coming off of a severe injury, and then I think other than that though, I don't know that there's a ton of guys at 13. Even now, Membu's a little different because Membu fits our MO really well, and I think even if we picked at 5, we should take him. But otherwise, I don't know that I've got him in the top 15 as a prospect. And that was just, the temperature on him rose pretty quickly. Senior Bowl to combine when he had 34s at the Senior Bowl. And then, he killed the combine and probably could have even tested better, is what people were saying. But I still, I never came around to the top 5 stuff. I think Campbell's in that conversation. And the question is Simmons tackle only. So that's the other thing. I think Simmons I said in my report early in the season, I think he's a very could be the best guard in the NFL someday. Tackle, I think he can be a great player. It's just for me, it wasn't about anything that he lacked at tackle. It just I know he played a little bit of guard in high school, and that was something that I felt like he would fit in better. Just because I didn't love some of the protection stuff in space. I didn't love the hands that much. And I think it looked a lot better at guard.
So here's the part that's more interesting to me. So we talk about all these guys that could go at 13 and 48. We talk about 3 main positions, defensive tackle, cornerback, and offensive lineman. which one, and Mason, we'll start with you, and I want to hear from Brett. Also, which one do you feel most comfortable waiting until 98 to take? Because with defensive tackle, you're saying we need 2. Can we start taking them at 98? With corner, we need a guy probably that can start or at least play a decent amount of snaps. Can you wait till 98? And do you want to wait till then to take a guard? I think, to me, guard might be the easiest one to look and find a guy that can plug and play.
That's kind of where I'm leaning. I'm pulling up. So, okay, yeah. I think I agree with you there. Guard at 98. I mean, I'm just looking at kind of my top guys right now. I mean, that would be Miles Frazier territory. For me, like I'd take Jackson Slater there, even though we can probably get him later. And then you might even get just a guy falling like Wyatt Milam, who, if you scoop up and you put him at guard, I really don't think we could go wrong there. And at the very least, even like a Chase Lunt from UConn. I mean, that's a guy that has run wide zone his entire career. And I think he'd look great on the interior. So yeah, I'd go guard.
I would tentatively say guard, although I do think there are some players who I think will be available for 48 that are guards. Like one I know Mason loves because he and I have talked about this one. If he's there at 48, I have a very hard time passing on him.
Yeah.
I also don't think he's going to be there at 48, but if he's there, that'll be one. I try not to get mad about draft picks, but I will be very annoyed if we would pass on Bo. So you and I fought for who's the conductor of that hype train. So I'll let you go ahead and talk about him a little bit, Mason.
No, I mean, I'm surprised I didn't get on here and campaign for him at 13, but I really think he's a special player, and I've kind of been beating the drum all year, even before the season. I watched I guess it was his 23 tape, maybe 6 or so games, and just like I vividly remember sitting in my bed, and it was really late, and I watched it, and my mouth was open the entire time. Like, he just kind of plays the game a special way, and I'll talk for hours, but just philosophically, I think the way I see the offensive line position going from where it's been just in the time that I've been training for it, I'd like to say that there's been kind of a technical revolution. I mean, even you go back and watch, film from 15 years ago, and now, like, the guys look a lot better. Like, it's a lot smoother, more efficient. The way the position's being taught and articulated is improving a lot. And for him, he just plays the game a special way. He can do things with his feet that other people can't. And his hands, he can do things that other people just can't.
Yeah. I think it was Jim Nagy who on X said it's like watching someone train for MMA, watching him play. And like I said, he's fun to watch because he just attacks everybody.
Yeah.
And I think he's plug and play. I've seen a lot of people and you mentioned Jackson Slater early, FCS guy. Well, for now, because I think Sacramento State just applied to go FBS. But I've seen people say you can get him in. I don't know if you're getting him this late. I've seen people say you can get him in round 4 or 5, and he's a day one starter, plug and play.
Yep. You definitely will be able to. I guess it's important to note, like, any grade that I have on a guy is not predictive. So like you said, I've got Slater as a day 2 grade, like end of the 3rd round kind of guy, but he'll probably be available 4 or 5. Although I'm interested to see, especially him, where he goes, because the Senior Bowl, the film, and the testing are all really impressive. And so he's kind of one I'm just curious about.
There's one for you, the Minnesota tackle. Do you think he's underrated?
I do. I was just thinking about this today, kind of the narratives around a guy like him and Donovan Jackson and Josh Connerly. They've all kind of fallen into the 2nd round, and I still would kind of stay strong with him as a back of the 1st round kind of guy. I mean, that's the grade that I would have. He's an imposing frame. He's athletic. He's powerful. Like you said, the Abdul Carter film is awesome. I mean, there's like, and what you're just looking for there is just flashes, because I kind of have to tell myself this, like, you're not getting this player that you're watching. You're getting, the guy that's going to go through months of training camp and whatever. Like Patrick Paul we talked last time I was on here, we talked about Patrick Paul and I hated him. And now he's, the season was hills and valleys, but for the most part, I saw him in the preseason and he looked like a different dude, looked like a different person to me. And so you kind of have to use that foresight and project guys. And I look at Ursary and I'm trying to figure out why he's dropping. I don't see a ton of flaws. I think especially if you kicked him inside, he's still a great player. I don't know.
Yeah. You mentioned Cornerly. Jordan can back me up on this. I was projecting, I was like, dude, he's going to be the number one tackle come draft time. And he just kind of sat there. It's just like, I'm surprised. I see Eric in the chat, Eric Smith, he just did a mock draft and he got Ursary in the third round of it. And I'm like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, and it's something that I always talk about with our system. Now again, we got to talk, because I think the philosophy we're using of trying to find gambles, trying to find fits because of the system we want to run is smart. I just think we've done it. We've just made bad decisions. You can't go into the season saying we're fine with Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg as our starting guards. Although I kind of have a feeling they were expecting Keon Smith to start last year. Whether that's good or not, you decide. Just like I kind of think right now Larry Barham's probably going to be in pencil at left guard. I don't think people want to hear that either, but I kind of get that feeling. But I think we're going to add another one. I think McDaniel even said this week that they're planning on adding another one. Another one I just saw today that people are saying you can get late day 2 is Logan Brown, and think he'd be a plug and play.
Yeah. I like Logan. He and actually I'll give you another name too. But Logan's a great player, very athletic. I wouldn't take him in day 2 personally. I think he is, for a 6-year guy, he's a little bit more raw than I'd want, especially in the run game. But nonetheless, I think he'd be a great value pick on day 3. And then I also want to offer Bryce Cabeldue from Kansas as well. I was very impressed with him, and I think he's going to go in the top 5 rounds. He would run our offense really well. He's a physical guy, and he's kind of got he's got the physicality you're looking for, I think. But he just kind of looks like an NFL guy to me. I don't know. It's kind of hard to articulate, but I watched him, and I really felt like this was an NFL guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And you going back to Patrick Paul for a second, I was like, I have a feeling if he could have actually moved into guard, people would not have hated it as much, but it's like,
no. And I thought that discourse, I thought that was good, healthy discourse. I don't think look, you just saw what Mekhi Becton did and Daniel Falele, whatever. And they're not the same player, but I think about it just practically. Okay, this guy's going to displace people in the run game. He can get his feet in the ground quickly. He can work tight shades, and in protection, the stuff that you really worry about with Patrick, kind of gets eliminated when you put him between 2 guys, and he can go and clamp on. He doesn't have to have perfect hands. He just can be bigger than everyone there. But it is what it is.
Yeah. And before we get into the mock, because there's we want to do a live first round mock. We try and do one every month in the lead up.
We're here. We're in April.
Yeah, another discourse going on right now in Dolphin Twitter. We talked about a couple positions. Would you take a safety in round 1, or is that a hard no for you? Because it seems like there's an argument that Malachi Starks could be the best player available, or Nick Emenwari, if you prefer him. That's a shout out to Jordan. Or is that you're fine with who we signed, you're fine with who we have back, the safety can wait?
I think I would lean towards taking a safety, and that's kind of the good thing about sitting at 13. I think we're going to have our choice of, at whatever position, you're going to have a guy there. And if it's Malachi Starks, I think that's a guy I'd want to take. Jahdae Barron, if you put him in that category of a nickel safety player. That's a guy I'd want. I think Eman Wari, for me, I'm back and forth on. I think he's got a little too much roamer to me in him. I see the parallels with the Kyle Hamilton stuff, but I don't think he's got the same instincts or just the gamership of Kyle. So I don't know that I'd like him at 13, but I wouldn't be unhappy with the pick. I think it makes sense, all things considered.
I believe this is your former teammate, right?
Yeah. Andrew's a great player. He kind of had an interesting career where at Clemson, I think he started off really strong and then just kind of was getting his footing back and then transferred to Texas and then just really had a great year. He's so interesting because I remember the first time you see him, like he's kind of a smaller guy. Like the frame is not like you watch him on TV first, and obviously he's not a huge guy, but then you see him in person, you're like, there's no way this is the guy that's sticking all these people, like putting them in the he is a violent football player, and I think circling him, even him at 48, I wouldn't bat an eye, to be honest.
Not at all. But I think we're ready to get into the mock.
Cool.
I'm going to share my screen. Brett, you want to talk for a second about the stick to the model simulator that we're going to use?
Someone reached out to us. It is a new mock simulator. It's actually probably my favorite one I've seen, and just did the mocks yesterday. At Stick to the Model on X is the handle. Definitely go follow him, football stats guy. Nice. He sent this to us. It's very interesting. This is the first one I've seen where you actually, if you click on players to draft, it'll give you their strengths, their weaknesses, and if you're just doing one team, it also will take out any player you want. So yeah, go ahead and pick someone, and you can see right there how they got it set up.
Yeah, this is one of the cleanest ones I've seen, and definitely, this is a feature that I think a lot of other sites are behind on. This is cool.
Yep. So how about we do this? We'll just go like 1, 2, 3, and then Mason, what we'll do is when we get to the Dolphins, we'll just do a collaborative. Okay. Mason, since you're the guest, you can start off with 1. Jordan, do you want 2 or 3?
I'll take 3 since I'm in the middle. We could just go in a revolving order of the way we are on the screen.
Okay, so go ahead, and I think this one's kind of easy.
Yeah. Okay, so with Tennessee here with the first pick, we're gonna go Cam Ward out of Miami.
Do you think, Mason, that there's any way that they go different there?
I don't. After they took the media team to his private workout or whatever it was, I think that was the nail in the coffin for me.
You think they tipped their hand a little bit there?
Right, yeah. I was like, what?
I think that's an easy one. I think you can write that one in 10. All right, Brett. Draft starts at 2.
Abdul Carter, in my opinion, is the best player in the draft. I think you got to go there. At Penn, Cleveland brought everybody to Happy Valley, so I think that it's either him or Hunter, but I think it's Abdul Carter. I just think he's too good to pass there.
So at 3, I think that a lot of people are going to expect the Giants to take Shedeur here. I actually think they're going to go Travis Hunter. I think that adding Russell Wilson, I think adding Jameis. I don't think that the Giants are going to ignore the quarterback position. I think there's a scenario where they take Hunter at 3, and then if you start seeing Shedeur and Dart slide a little bit, and we start getting to the Rams, we start getting to the Steelers in that range, I think you can start seeing the Giants look to move up from 34. I also think that a guy like a Tyler Shaw, like a Jalen Milroe, guys like that would make Quinn Ewers would make sense. I don't know if the Giants really can make a run this year, but I think that having Travis Hunter and Malik Neighbors at receiver for Russell Wilson's a good start.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of that. I think we kind of talked about this with the Draft Network in some of our meetings. Like, if you think about this from a Brian Dable and co standpoint, bringing in Russell Wilson and Jameis, I think is a good move just to remain competitive currently. And there's a level of job security where they're going to have to win X amount of games for them to feel comfortable. But also at the same time, if you at some point can draft a quarterback as an insurance policy, then let's say that you go 6-11 or whatever, and you have a disappointing season with Russell Wilson, but now you've got a quarterback in the chamber. I think maybe you keep the guys around one more year for him. Like, I think there's kind of a level of draft chess there to be played.
Yeah. All right, Mason, Patriots.
Yeah, I'm going to go Will Campbell out of LSU here. I think this is, for me, I think this is a no-brainer pick. I think he fits the Vrabel MO. This is a guy, like, I think it's silly how we've kind of become so engulfed in the arm length conversation. Like, this is a guy that a year ago was blocking Jared Verse, and he's blocked Will Anderson and Dallas Turner and you name it. Guys that have gone to the NFL and shown that they were NFL guys in college, and he's, had played against them and did well. I mean, this is a seasoned, I think he's a future all-pro level player.
And plus, as you said, Mike Vrabel, his teams, they just draft offensive linemen. It doesn't even, they will just take you anywhere. I will say this, though. I did see someone mention Gienti is a possibility there. So I could see that happening. Jacksonville, if Trent Baalke was still at Jacksonville, I would say this is the Wild West. There's funny story, Mason. I was actually on a podcast with Jags fans at the beginning of the year, and I was like, are you guys happy with what Baalke's done? And they talked themselves into liking Baalke. And Baalke's one of the guys that I think he's one of the few guys Dolphins fans would take Chris Greer over.
Yeah.
What's this group going to do at 5, Brett?
So I don't think it's going to be McMillan. I think he's fallen, unfortunately. I'll say this, if Will Johnson runs what they're saying he's going to run, I think he becomes the pick. I think it's hands down Will Johnson. But for now, I'm sticking with Mason Graham. I think he's just disruptive. They passed on a generational Michigan talent a couple years ago, number 1 overall. I don't think they're going to do it again.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that these are right now probably the top 5 players in the draft. You talked about Will Johnson running, and I think that the Jaguars will be happy to have Mason Graham fall to 5. And that was a guy talking selfishly as Dolphin fans. If he starts going into like that 8 range, Mason Graham's a guy that I would definitely be okay trading up for.
Yep.
Yeah. Just talking.
It's funny. The way my screen is blocked, I didn't even see that our Twitter admin said that. Like, yeah, totally. I think 8 is the spot, Carolina. That if he gets to 8, I'm calling and seeing if I can make a move to go up and get Mason.
Let me just ask both of you. Aside from Mason Graham, which I agree, if he gets to 8, I'm calling. But is there anybody else you would trade up for if they start falling, or you just stick to them?
If I can keep 48 and 48 and what is it, 98? Like somehow, like if it's a 13,
you're getting rid of at least a third.
13 to 10, like 13 to 11, even to get Will Johnson if he runs. I would go to 10. Like if we can give a third and get back a 5th or something like that. If it's not that expensive, but I think that we need at least 3 guys that could start. So I don't think I'm doing it. I think like was said, I think it's just Graham.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, 6. So last time we were on here, I took Ashton Jeanty for the Raiders. And then I said to myself, tonight, I came in with the mindset that I was going to take anybody but Ashton Jeanty when I got to the Raiders. And then I saw that yesterday, the Raiders general manager said that his son says he's leaving the household if he doesn't take Jeanty at 6. So for that reason only, that could be bait to get another team at like 5 to get him or somebody to move up. I think Jeanty's floor is 10, but I think that he goes off the board 6 to the Raiders.
All right. Mason, you get the team that every Dolphin fan would love to draft for.
Right.
All right, take a punter.
Yeah. I'm gonna go Armand Membu from Missouri. I think again we're just talking about brands with these offensive linemen. I think I think this would look really good for the Jets. You would have a ton of youth at your offensive line, segment. And I'm sorry, my dog just went crazy.
It sounded like
he did a little crazy, like run around the room thing. I think it would be a good time for them to take Membu and just solidify that young offensive line group.
All right, that's our 10-second Jet talk. Brett, Carolina.
So I'm going to go a little different here. Looking at what Carolina did, I think you saw enough from Bryce Young that you feel comfortable that there's something there you can build on. It's not a wasted pick. They need to get talent. I don't really think you can go wide receiver this early, although I could see them gambling on Emeka Egbuka, which I would be fully in support of. But what is a young quarterback's best friend? A tight end. So I am going to have Carolina take Tyler Warren.
Interesting.
It just feels like, because you also have Jatavian Sanders had that injury last year. I think Tremble's gone. Ian Thomas, I think, is gone. I don't know. But Dave Canales used the tight ends a lot in Tampa. So I think he'd have a lot of fun with Ty Warren.
Going to New Orleans at 9. I think this is such an interesting spot because I think New Orleans coming into this draft, they might see it as a possibility. But I don't know if they were fully convinced that Shador was going to be on the board here. I think that he could have gone at 6. I think he could have gone at 3. I think he could have gone at 2. And I think New Orleans pretty much was set on an edge rusher until this happened. So I'm going to take Shador Sanders at 9 to the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah. For the record, before Mason takes a pick, I saw he had in his last mock the Steelers trading up for Shador Sanders, I believe. I actually was going to say if he lasted, I could see the Steelers being a team that would make a move. And I think they're one of the very few QB needy teams that he would succeed in right away.
Right.
What about the Rams? If they decided to sit him behind Stafford for a year and then play him?
I think that's going to happen. I think the Rams within, I don't know where they draft, but within a meaningful pick, I think they're going to take a quarterback. That's just kind of a thing I have. In that same mock, I mocked Quinn there, and that was kind of just coming off of the combine where you talk to people about Quinn and people weren't totally out on him. Like there's enough, singular games out there that they've watched of him where I think the jury's still out. And he would fit in perfectly with that offense. But otherwise, I do think having someone to sit behind Stafford, it would be a genius move.
Yeah. All right, 10. Who does Chicago take?
Yeah, so I think I'd go Kelvin Banks here. I think, although actually I take that back.
I didn't click yet. You're good.
What is Chicago? So I know they signed a bunch of linemen. What else do they need right now?
This says offensive tackle, defensive line, and edge. They also need a running back. I think this might be a little too high for Hampton, even though, that would be a better.
The word right now is Hampton is not getting past Denver.
I can see that Chicago can always take an edge rusher.
Right. I think I'm going to go Shamar Stewart here out of Texas A&M. Shamar's obviously just had a very interesting draft narrative, obviously similar to Travon Walker's, but I think you're getting the player that, I saw at the Senior Bowl, which is just a big ass physical, like scary dude, like a special combination of just mobility and power and size. I think I would be surprised if he made it out of the top 10.
Brett, San Fran.
So San Francisco has a history of just drafting best player available. They say they need interior, they need offensive tackle. So I could see Calvin Banks. I'm just going complete best player available. They're going to take Will Johnson.
I agree with that. And I think that when we were talking about a spot to move up to, I think that San Fran's a team you have to move ahead of. If, let's say, here's a scenario I like. Chicago wants Omari and Hampton because Gentry's gone, and Chicago wants to stay ahead of Denver, so they trade from 10 to 13. The Dolphins come up and get Will Johnson at 10. Chicago gets Shamar Stewart or somebody like that, or Omari and Hampton a couple picks later. I could see something like that.
Yeah. Real quick, before you make the pick, was asked if you could show the strengths and weaknesses for Will Johnson.
Yes.
So, yeah, he ideal size and length, elite fluidity for his side, exceptional ball skill. Every interception he gets is like a pick six. Route recognition, press technique, tackling ability, competitive mindset, scheme versatility. And again, for Dolphin fans, the joke among Michigan fans is when we need a D coordinator, we're just going to go to Baltimore. Mike McDonald, Jesse Minter, Wink Martindale. So whenever Wink leaves, just look at the Baltimore defensive staff. Weakness occasionally bring that back up.
My bad.
Sorry. Occasionally relies too much on physical talent rather than technique. That's true. He does kind of think he can outjump people occasionally. Can improve consistency in zone coverage. Sometimes takes calculated risks that QBs may escape. As the question is, he gambles a lot, though. Yes. That was very evident in the Washington game, I believe, when Denzel Boston had a couple catches against him. But I've seen people say that he's not physical, and I'm like, that's just lazy because Will Johnson's definitely very physical. And he went toe-to-toe with Marvin Harrison. He went toe-to-toe with Roma Dunze. Texas didn't even target him. I think they targeted him once this year, so they stayed away from him. And he got 2 pick sixes this year, so he's going to gamble. But yeah, the other reason I made the pick, not only just because I think he's better, I didn't want to make our pick at 13 when we do the collaboration that too easy.
That's so fair. And it's funny. I was thinking about that. I was like, damn, we're gonna get to 13. It's gonna be easy.
Yeah.
But I'll get us there. 12 with Dallas. I think the way the board falls, I think this is easy. I think Ted McMillan, this is where his slide ends. Dallas is in a position where they need a flashy player. And I think when you look at a guy like Ted McMillan, although he fell, he's 6'4", he's 220. He ran a 4.48 at his pro day. And he's a guy that I think when you put him on the other side of CeeDee Lamb, they're going to see that as their version of T. Higgins to Jamar Chase. Or something like that. And I think that this is a guy, I think this is another spot where Omari and Hampton could go.
Yeah.
But I do think that between Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, and whatever else they're going to throw back there, this running back class is so deep. And I think that Dallas can get one at some point. I think seeing a big physical receiver with great attributes, I think that that's going to be too much for Jerry Jones to pass up.
Yeah. And speaking of Ted McMillan, I know that and this is a question for both of you, Green Bay spent a lot of time on him. If they call and McMillan's available, would you be willing to trade back to where Green Bay's drafting?
All right. So that puts us at, what are they, 24 or 23? 23 is probably the floor that I would go to. I think that allows you to get Harmon or Nolan, or I don't think Grant's there. I think that allows you to get a defensive tackle still. And probably going down that far gets you a second-round pick.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe even a future first.
That puts you in a category where you can get Bo and a corner and a defensive tackle. I think that looking in this Denver, Pittsburgh, Chargers, Green Bay range is a good spot for the Dolphins to look. Mason, do you like the idea of trading back? Or do you think the Dolphins have too many needs? They got to take one at 13.
I do. Everything you said, I agree with. I think that's definitely probably the floor of where I'd want to go before you start losing the guys. But like you said, I mean, if we can steal another pick in the top 100 and you're still going to be in play for some of your top guys, I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So, boys, Mason wants to take an edge rusher. So who are we taking? Yeah. Brett, what do you think here?
So with how the board falls, I think for me personally, it's between 3 players, Jahdae Barron, Kenneth Grant, and I would personally say Walter Nolan. You can sell me on Kelvin Banks. Shout out to Ozzy. He did ask for Banks. So, I'll rephrase that. I'll take Nolan out and say I would go between Barron, Banks, or Grant. It is. I think the fall off from Barron and Johnson to the next corner is a lot. Lead short quickness, exceptional route recognition. When you look at Jahdae Barron's description, he's a perfect fit for us. But it's also not that far away. I got to acknowledge that it wasn't that long ago I said I think Kelvin Banks is one of the 7 best players in this draft. And things have changed a bit. So you can sell me on Kelvin Banks too. Or Grant. Like, I think if the draft fell like this, I would lean Barron just because I'm not as big of a fan of the corners in round 2. And fun game to play the next couple weeks. Take a shot every time someone posts the video clip of Grant running down the Penn State running back. You're going to see that a lot.
Take a shot every time you see that on draft night.
Yeah. Ozzy, I do like Loveland, but because I think he's a better blocker than people give credit. But it's the argument I've made to Jordan. As much as I would love Warren or Loveland, it is hard with how our offense is. It is hard for me to justify using the 13th pick on a tight end when we already have Jonnu.
Mason, what do you think here?
I wouldn't be against it.
I liked the Loveland point that Ozzy brought up. I think for me, I think about what Las Vegas did last year, where wasn't necessary. Actually, there was no need for a tight end. But you pick a guy like the 2 that we have at the top of this class, Warren and Loveland. I think you're talking about guys that can actually transcend an offense, and I think they're force multipliers, and I don't think they're guys that anyone would pick and ever regret. You know what I mean? Like, that's the real goal of this, is to just make the pick and not wish you didn't. And I think, Loveland's going to be the kind of player that you're going to make that pick and he's going to make plays, and you're going to totally forget that maybe you didn't draft your positional need there. I personally, with the pick, I think the Loveland's really biting at me here, but I think I'm gonna stick to Kenneth Grant. I just think that's a guy that I think he immediately fills a big need that we have with the run defense, and I think he'd blossom into a franchise player.
Yeah, I said it, and Brett knows. I said it a month ago, and I said it, I think last week even, that Kenneth Grant is the type of guy that you take, and on draft night, people will say it's a little bit of a reach. He could have gone a little bit lower, but once the pads go on and the games starting, like, that's a dude you want on your football team. How
am I the one guy going against the Michigan player?
How the time or the tables have turned, Brett.
I would love Grant on the team. Like I said, and that's a fair case. And like I said, I think the drop off is significant. And the other argument you can make is you can get another corner. You probably feel more comfortable, if need be, Cater, Kahoo, Storm Duck, or Artie Burns starting than you do with Benito Jones as your starting nose tackle. So when you look at that, I'd probably agree. I think we go Kenneth Grant in this situation. So
all right, Kenneth Grant. And Mason, since we changed, we went collaboratively there, you can go with the Colts there at 14.
Cool.
This is why we had the discussion earlier. Trade down would have been great.
Yeah.
Oh, a trade down would have been awesome.
I think I'm gonna go Colston Loveland here. I think this
is his
perfect storm for Indianapolis there. You get an immediate, top play on your offense, top option.
Absolutely. Brett, Falcons. Is this where the edge rusher run starts?
It does, and I'm not going to go with the number. I'm not going to go with the Georgia boy. Funny enough, I'm actually going to go. I'm actually going to go with James Pierce.
Oh.
I think the more you watch of him, he is probably, in my opinion, the best edge rusher. It's funny talking about the Georgia edge rusher. I saw Brett Coleman have a tweet that you either think he's going top 10 or you think he's going day 2. There's no in between. And James Pierce, I'm kind of surprised he's not getting more love. I've heard there's some rumors of some character issues. They're kind of vague, kind of like Walter Nolan has some character issues, but they're kind of vague. But yeah, he's super advanced. I think Atlanta's kind of gotten themselves in a situation where they gamble a bit too much on the RAS sometimes, and it bites them. They are so close to being a great team. They need someone who can come in right away and be a difference maker, and I think Pierce is that.
Yeah, I think that's we're at about the point that the edge rusher run is going to start. I think Arizona is another team that you could see take that and kind of double up on that position. But they just signed Josh Sweat. They have B.J. Ojolari. They have Baron Browning. They have Zaven Collins. I think that they can wait a little bit there. But I think for Arizona, when you look at the cornerback position, we talked about it at 13 that there's a huge drop off. I think they're going to feel the same way, and I think they're going to take Jahdae Barron at 16.
All right, so Mason, you got the Bungles.
All right. Interesting. Yeah, so I think if I'm the Bengals here, I'm going to go Michael Williams out of Georgia. I know personally when I've watched Michael, and I especially actually watched him over the summer as we kind of got ready to play Georgia, and I think the pass rush ceiling is high. I don't know that he's going to be a guy that's a 10 sack per year kind of player. I think his value as a pass rusher is going to be a little bit more sporadic than you'd see from, or that you would want from, kind of a star defensive end. But what you're getting is a player that can move along the line and is an elite run defender, like a truly a guy that has a special ability to play long and create extension and to get his hands on guys and his feet in the ground. And we also, it's hard for me to say that about him as a pass rusher. We haven't seen him healthy at all this season. He was hurt all year, significantly injured. So I think there's a good chance that he could pan out to be a player.
Yeah, go up to players. There you go.
Cool. Hey, I'm learning.
Yeah. Michael Williams is a good one because I've seen a couple of people even say hit him for us. And I think he'd be a good fit. I think, like you said, he's got all the talent. He's a little raw. And I think after last year's draft where we gambled on a lot of raw potential, I don't think either McDaniel or Greer can really do that this year.
Right.
Seattle's an interesting one. They always I feel like they always go off the beaten trail. They could go. I'm really tempted to give them a Buka. I'm going to give them Calvin Banks. They need shout out to our buddy Rob Staten over in Sheffield in England. He's done draft episode with us before. He did our Seattle preview with us. We bonded over how much our teams constantly are looking for offensive linemen. Kelvin Banks, I think at the very least, he's plug and play left guard. He has some left tackle potential, but I would just plan on him being a left guard, and I think he's all pro level immediately. So yeah, and just to kind of go off too, I agree with you earlier, Mason. He is a guy that at 13, if the others aren't available, you can sell me on taking him.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at Tampa at 19, I think there's a number of different directions they can go. I think they're another team that could take one of these edge rushers. I think they're a team that is a really good spot for Jahad Campbell. I think they're a team that's a good spot for a couple of the interior offensive linemen as well. But I'm going to stop the slide of safeties, and I'm going to say Nick Emenwari, I think, would be a good fit next to Antoine Winfield. In that secondary for Tampa, for Todd Bowles. And I think that they're going to be they're going to draft somebody on that defensive side of the football. And I think here, for me, in this variation of the million picks we're going to make, I think it's Evan Maury.
Yeah. Go ahead and pull up his strengths and weaknesses real quick.
Got you.
Yeah. Yeah. When you look at that versatility, I have a feeling, and Mason, please tell me if I'm wrong here, but I have a feeling if we were to go safety, he is the one that makes more sense for our defense. Because I know you said you were talking, you don't see it with Kyle Hamilton, but I look at his measurables. I look at his athleticism and some of his film, and I could see Anthony Weaver saying, this is my, it's lazy, but this is my Kyle Hamilton. And I don't think people, I don't think we will go safety, but I don't think people realize how important safety is in our defense. So I think he is more likely for us, and I could be 100% wrong, but I think he's more likely for us than Malachi Starks.
No, I don't disagree with that. I mean, when you're talking about what Anthony Weaver has been familiar with in his career, I think it absolutely makes sense. And that's why, I mean, he's not a player that I think is that caliber, but like I said, I would not be unhappy. I would be happy. I'd be super excited if we picked him because he's a super fun prospect. And like you said, I mean, he can change your defense. He's a special athlete.
Yeah.
Broncos.
Yeah. So I think, Brett, you said this. Hampton doesn't make it past him. You don't think?
Yeah, that's the rumor.
Yeah. And honestly, I think I'm going to go with Amari and Hampton. I think it's kind of interesting where Denver's at. It almost feels like a luxury pick because of where they've got their defense at right now. I mean, and offensively, I think adding a running back to the equation, like a legit guy, would be huge, especially, considering the way they run their offense and how crucial that position is.
All right. So Pittsburgh, my family are all Steelers fans.
You want me to give him the jet treatment and pull up the punters and kickers?
No. So the most Steeler pick would be to take Jalen Walker, but they don't need an edge, I don't think. This is actually part of me wants to have him take Jackson Dart, but I think after they gambled on Kenny Pickett, I don't think they really want to do that gamble. Plus, the owner basically wants Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, I guess everyone does need an edge. What are their needs, real quick?
We have their needs on here listed as defensive line, quarterback, and running back.
You know what? This is a Steeler pick. Give him Walter Nolan. I think. Actually, no, not give him Harmon. Harmon's more of a Steeler guy, especially because
wasn't it? There was somebody recently that said that Harmon is going to end up on either the Steelers or the Ravens.
It makes sense. And they do need to get younger in the D line. And everybody needs an edge, and it's basically shown when TJ. This is Captain Obvious stuff. When TJ Watt is on the field, Steelers have one of the best defenses in the league. When TJ Watt is not on the field, they fall off a cliff. But Harmon just feels like a Steelers guy, and they have the record they do because they just take best player available no matter what. Jordan, you get the Chargers.
Yeah, I think the Chargers are going to look at a couple areas. It says they're wide receiver. I just don't think that they're going to try to take another high-end wide receiver here in the first round. I do think that this edge rusher class is perfect for them. You can, between Jalen Walker and Mike Green being here, you can literally flip a coin and give them one of them. Brett, you've loved Mike Green this whole draft process. So I'm going to go ahead and give him to the Chargers as we pull up his positives and negatives. I mean, a lot of positional versatility, and I think that's a thing Harbaugh is going to love when it comes to Mike Green. Football intelligence, zone ability is going to be huge, I think, for Jesse Minter to be able to play around with this kind of little gadget they'll be able to have on the edge.
Yeah. And the thing to remember is the big thing with Mike Green is the character concerns. That is the big red flag. Who did Jim Harbaugh draft his first year in San Francisco? Who had character concerns? Alden Smith. So Harbaugh, and it's something he has no problem taking a risk on character concern. So I think that makes a lot of sense. So what about you, Mason? Do you think?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Mike Green. I think just a kind of a I think if you take the green M off the helmet and you put an SEC or a Big Ten or one of those schools on it, I think this is a guy that'd be a top 10 pick. He's got a really special skill set, and he's just a dominating rusher. He's like a scary, bendy, twitched up guy. Kind of reminds me of Chop in that way. But yeah, I love that pick.
All right. What do you think, Green Bay?
Yeah, I think Green Bay, honestly, I think I'm going to go Walter Nolan here. I think just position. I think he's one of the best available guys at this point in the draft. And then he obviously fills a team need, but I think we talked about it earlier. Just violent at the point of attack. He's versatile, like all of these Ole Miss guys are. And then he's been the same guy that he always has been since high school. I remember when he's one of the top recruits in the class, and
he gets like number one.
Right. And he's just continued to kind of be that guy. So I would not bet against him at that point.
Do you have any idea what the character concerns are? Because some people are saying character concerns, and that's the first I've ever heard of from him.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of this stuff. I think, like, there's nothing. I don't know. It seems to be a lot of rumor, like a lot of like he said, she said stuff. Yeah. Whereas maybe some of these other guys have things that are out there from direct quotes and things like that. I think it's bullcrap. Yeah. I think it's all bullcrap, and we can sit and act like we care about it, but none of us are in any chairs making decisions. Like if the guy's a piece of crap, then like I don't know it. Like we're just like doing a mock draft. Everyone's like, no, he can't go in the first round in my mock because he's got character concerns. I'm like, what are you talking
about? So right.
Yeah. No,
Minnesota, yeah.
Nolan's a good one. Malachi Starks for the Vikings. They need a safety. He's gonna be center field safety. Just makes sense for them. It's annoying that I'm giving Brian Flores a very good safety after he ran one out of for us, but it makes sense. Yeah, not much else to say. Best player available and fits a need.
So I think what I'm looking
go ahead and pull up the strengths and weaknesses.
There you go.
Yeah. So elite range, closing speed, occasional aggressiveness. Yeah, so sounds kind of like Javon Holland.
Yeah, a little bit.
If you think that's an insult or a compliment, I will let you decide.
you can take it from there. Looking at Houston, I think it's obvious that they need an offensive lineman. But I also think that when you look at their coach, DeMeco Ryans, and you look at other needs that they have on this team, I think Jahad Campbell is really going to stand out and going to be a guy that they consider in this spot. I think that if they cared that much, and to use Chris Greer's word, if they were that worried about the offensive line, I think they would have handled the offseason a little bit differently. I do think they addressed the offensive line, but I think being able at, what are we picking, 25 for Houston? I think being able to get a player in Jahad Campbell that's the top player in his positional group, when you go to the second round, you're still getting one of the middle tier offensive linemen there, and you could take a couple of them. But I think if you have a chance to get linebacker one, if you're DeMeco Ryans, I think that's something you're really going to be able to be happy about. I mean, Mason, you said it before, you want to pick a guy that you don't regret picking right away. And you want to pick a guy, no matter what position he is, you want to pick a guy you come out loving. And I can't see a guy that DeMeco Ryans is going to want to come out of the draft more than Jahad Campbell here.
Yeah, I love that pick. I think this Jalon Walker slide is really interesting because I think he's a great player. I'm not, everyone, like, I'm kind of with everyone else. I haven't watched him super closely, but I've watched him live and I've watched him game planning, and I think he's a great player. But like, we go through this class and I don't want to pick him.
Yeah.
And I actually noticed, I was watching a little bit of him today, and this is not super surprising, and I wouldn't be surprised if it played out like this.
But I think that when you're looking at this edge class, like when we go up, it's such a deep class. Any of these guys could have gone here at 10.
Right.
Any of these guys could have gone here at 15, at 17, at 22. Like, they could go in any order. And that's why I said before, you're flipping a coin, because like you said about character concerns, these guys are so close in ranking. Like, I don't know how the general manager of the Chiefs feels about one guy over the, like, it's really that close of a decision. And one of these guys are going to be there when it comes to 26. I think tonight, when we're doing this, Jalon Walker just makes the most sense.
Yeah. And as Brett Campbell said, like I said with the tweet, he said, you either think he's top 10 or you don't think he's going in the first round. And it just, like you said, Mason, I'm looking and it's like, yeah, he's there, but, and it's just one of those things where it just doesn't, it's like, yeah, and it's unfortunate. And there's going to be someone who slides, and it looks like it will be Walker for now. But yeah, I believe you're up with the Rams then. Mason.
This is kind of a tough pick. I think can we look at the quarterbacks?
So Dart there.
Yeah. I mean, Dart's right there. I think Dart is not my pick here, personally, but I do think this makes a lot of sense, and I'm gonna defer to the narrative with him that he, I guess, is a first rounder. So I'm gonna go Jackson Dart here to sit behind Stafford. I personally, I think there's a couple, probably a good many guys I'd have above him. Tyler Shock. I think I'd have maybe even Milrow.
Jordan, pull up his strengths and weaknesses.
Got you.
But otherwise, I think there's going to be familiarities in the offense, and it's something he could run effectively. And he'd sit for a year and he'd grow. And I think that's the best course of action for any young quarterback.
Yeah, I'm not really sure where the Jackson Dart is a first round pick came from.
I think it came from the fact that there has to be a third,
right,
in people's mind.
Yeah, I said that on the same radio show I was talking about earlier. I said it, I think right after the Senior Bowl. Like, it was almost immediate where the people, and it was funny, it was the people that were not at the Senior Bowl. It was the NFL Network guys who were not there, who were all tweeting out, or the ESPN guys all tweeting out that he was a first round guy. And there was absolutely nothing at the Senior Bowl that would have pointed anyone that way. I mean, all the quarterbacks looked the same and they looked average. It blows my mind. I feel like we're all just getting gaslit. And I feel a little crazy sometimes, but
yeah, it's like Geno Smith when he was in college. He was supposed to be first overall pick. What was the Syracuse quarterback? Ryan Nesbitt or something? Nesbitt. He was like supposed to be a first round pick.
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the green room invite and doesn't go in the first round, like what happened to Will Levis. Something else could be going on. His agent has been clocking overtime. It's been unreal.
Yeah. I get crap for this. There was a time I said Taj Boyd was the number 2 pick in the draft.
I love that. You know what? Today, if he came out today,
for sure.
Man, Taj Boyd, he that hits some heartstrings, because he was my like childhood quarterback. And
dude, I remember he was supposed to go to Ohio State, committed to Tennessee. Lane Kiffin said, "We don't want you." Ends up at Clemson, and he's the guy who started the dynasty for Clemson.
Yeah, and he threw the best deep ball out of all of them. They want to talk about Deshaun and Trevor. He threw the best deep ball. There was nothing like him.
Yeah.
All right, Baltimore.
So, like we talked, if the draft fell like this, there is no way I think they pass on Jalen Walker. That just feels like a Ravens pick. Jordan, go ahead and pull up his strengths and weaknesses. if it lets you. There we go. Yeah, elite athleticism, exceptional closing burst, coverage ability. That's reading like an edge for Baltimore. So yeah, they just keep doing what they do, and they just take the one guy everybody else is dumb enough not to take.
It's crazy how that works. Even when we could have planned it to screw over Baltimore, and we still would have found a way to give them the player that dropped. It's crazy how it works like that every year. But looking at Detroit, I think they're slapping themselves a little bit. I think that if Jalen Walker is there, they might try to jump Baltimore. The Rams move back a couple spots, take Dart in this area, and the Lions move up. I think that this is also an area that you might see somebody move up and the Lions move down, because I think that they could use just some future assets over adding one of these guys. But I think that the guy, if I'm looking at this list, if I'm looking at which one of these guys is going to make an impact on the Detroit Lions this year, I'm going with Emeka Egbuka. I think that they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, they have Jamison Williams, but I think outside of that, yeah, they have Tim Patrick. But if the Lions are looking to put themselves over the hump and really make a Super Bowl push, why not go out there and have the best group of weapons that you could possibly give Jared Goff? Like we talked about before with the Broncos, this is a luxury pick. I think it's a need pick if Jalen Walker slips a spot. But I think that being a luxury pick, if you look at a guy that kind of fits that mentality, they talk down here about competitive toughness. You talk about route running precision, body control, reliable hands, IQ that screams Detroit Lions football. And I think that this is a pick that the Lions will be very happy to make.
Commies for you, Mason.
Yeah, so there's a couple guys I want to take here. I think I have to take the better one. I'm going to go Donovan Azuraku from Boston College. I think this is a guy that he's going to contend for. Actually, for me, he is, to me, the best pure pass rusher in this class. If you just watch a cut up of the pressures and the sacks, he's unreal, and he's got legitimate feel, stuff that you can't coach, even just outside of his technique. Like, he just kind of has that sixth sense as a pass rusher, and I think he's a future 14 plus sack per year guy. And honestly, I saw him at the Senior Bowl, and he's actually a lot bigger than I thought he was. On film, he kind of looks a little petite, but in person, he had long arms and he was a little bit thicker than I thought he was. And so I think he's absolutely a first-round player who kind of falls in the lap of Washington here.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about him. I just don't know a lot about him because
Boston.
It just seems like Boston College always ends up having these players that get hyped up, and it's just like, why isn't the program better than it is?
Right.
Yeah. Brett, Buffalo.
Now, what are they saying the needs are? Because I saw edge, and I'm like, you do not need an edge when you have
corner, D-line,
edge,
various defensive positions. Scroll for a little bit.
See, I don't agree with them needing D-line. When you have Ed Oliver, Greg Rousseau, and AJ Epinesa, you can get away with other positions with just another person. I'm going to go off of their needs for a second. And I think if you look at what Buffalo wants to do, I think they're going to go Matthew Golden if the draft fell like this. They big fast guy with Josh Allen. Go ahead and pull up the strengths and weaknesses. I'm not as big of a Matthew Golden fan as most people seem to be, so I think he's a late first, early second round guy rather than a mid first. But his style just fits what they want to do. and you give Allen some with that speed, it just makes sense. I think they're going to do that, and they have all the other needs. I think they're starting to extend a bunch of people. Yeah, I just think Golden just makes too much sense there.
Yeah,
and for the first time, we're not going to have KC having Derek Harmon.
Yeah, that was so. This is our third version of this, and in the first two versions, the only player that we had in common was Derek Harmon to the Chiefs, and he has moved up the board quite a bit. And I think that the obvious need for the Chiefs right now, I think it is really that offensive line position. The question is, do they think that Sua Mateo, they drafted last year, can come in and play left tackle, or do they think he's a left guard? Personally, I think that they can afford to figure that out if they take Josh Simmons. And that's the direction I think they go. I think either Simmons will play tackle and Sua Mateo will play guard, or they'll flip. I think that the way I said it was Simmons at tackle will be the way they go. But Josh Simmons, another guy, just like Baltimore getting Jalen Walker, that we talked about Josh Simmons earlier on this about an hour ago as a possible option at 13. So I think that the Chiefs are definitely going to be happy getting him here at 31. And Mason, you can close us out with the champs.
Yeah, Philadelphia here. I'm so glad that offensive line is a need here because I have to do this. I'm going to take Marcus Bow out of Purdue. Offensive tackle, combo lineman. I think jokes aside, I think what Philadelphia is going to do at 32 is going to be really interesting because, like you said, whatever this pick is, it in some form is a luxury pick. And in one of my mock drafts, I noted I had Ursary going. Yeah, I had Ursary going there because if you look at if you just look at Philadelphia, they averaged about 6.5 offensive linemen played per game, and that's between injuries and heavy sets. There's a role for a rookie offensive lineman to play, even if they're not a day one starter on that offensive line. And I think for Marcus, he is maybe a guy going against my own my own opinion on him. I think he is maybe a guy that would benefit from having a year to kind of sit and learn. He walks that line between aggression and discipline closely sometimes. And if he can hone in the discipline part and kind of play a little bit more within himself, then I think you're getting, the best offensive lineman in this class. So yeah. The rich get richer in Philadelphia.
Yeah. And there's an interesting guards like Mbo, Zerbal, the Ohio State guard Jackson. These are all guys who they could get like 20 to 40, like maybe 48, maybe a little later. That is that's their window. And like, I would not be surprised if people come up later. I'm always interested because they always say Philly needs an edge. How does that team ever need an edge?
No, they can draft anyone. They took Jalix Hunt at whatever pick it was last year. And I thought I loved the guy because I had like a 5th or 6th round grade on him. And they totally blew me out of the water and he balled out. And I was like, what? This is not what I thought he was.
Yeah. But I mean, that was fun. And like I said, that is from Stick to the Model on X. Definitely follow him. Check out his.
Brett, is that his X handle? Stick to the Mod.
Yep, at Stick to the Model.
I'm going to. I'm gonna. Do we still call it tweeting? I'm gonna tweet out the results of this. I'm following up from our last one, so yeah. And I'll make sure to tag him.
And the website is sticktothemodel.com. And like I said, that is one of the more detailed mock simulators I've done. That was fun, and we have gone our 20. Mason, before we let you go, do you have any articles coming out you want to hype up or?
No, I'll have my top 10 tackles and interior guys posted leading up to the draft, and then probably a predictive mock. And other than that, just getting ready for the 26 class actually, and working on our way too early top 100. So that's been fun, but just kind of starting to shift gears now with the Draft Network.
Nice. All right. Definitely check out Mason's stuff in the Draft Network as a whole. You guys do great work. maybe you'll be like everybody else and end up at what's the 33rd team because it feels like everybody from the Draft Network goes to the 33rd team.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
But Mason, thank you for joining us. Jordan, I think we've been on long enough, unless you have anything you wanted to add before we close out.
Hey, we're good to go. The heater rolling, baby.
Yeah.
The Panthers are getting ready for the playoffs. The Dolphins, it's 3 weeks away from the best day of the year as a Miami Dolphins fan. Hey, life is good right now, man.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody have a great night and a great weekend, and we will see you next time.
All right, everybody.